maybe you should just get a little net and put it in the garden or a park, right? and just and
Yeah.
just play over and just play over that, right? Sometimes as people we make things overcomplicated, yeah.
Mm.
And you can go online, you can order a little home net, and it'll cost you like 10 euros or something, like something probably maybe, I don't
Yeah.
know, depends on the quality, right? And you take it to a park and put it in a park, and you're like, yay. Just
Mm.
hope that the wind doesn't blow too much, because that's obviously a bit of an issue. But yeah, use the spaces and places around about. I think that people don't use that enough. People are always worried about having everything exact, or having exactly the right equipment, and it helps. It makes things better, but you don't always need that. Sometimes you can have just as much fun and just as much exercise with um, doing it casually as you can with doing it seriously. But then maybe also it's nice to have a mix of those things as well. Um, it's nice to push yourself and have a real game and see how that works out, and um, enjoy things as well. I mean, that's how things like beach volleyball started up, right?
Yeah.
Beach volleyball was just, oh, we can do this on the beach, right? And we'll make a little net, and then people started to take it more seriously.
Mm.
And they're like, oh, we have to have the lines, and we have to have somebody, you have to count the scores, and we have to have somebody officiating, and so the, and so builds something from that. But you see the way that children play, right? They don't worry too much about those things. A stick can be a gun, or it can be a sword, or it can be a magic wand, or it can be an artist brush,
Mm.
or um, there's almost no, it can be food for a little teddy bear or something. There's no limit to what things can be if we want them to be those things. I often think about the what I would call the mixed reality of downtime. That's a really strange way to title it, but what that is we tend to make things for one specific purpose, and yet everything could have many specific purposes. Let's take a simple example. A cup. We think of a cup as my classic Star Wars cup with my coffee. We tend to think of a cup. It's just a cup. It's just a container for tea, coffee, water, whatever. But it could hold other things, like you could have a cup for your pens or something like that.
Yeah.
Keep your pens in it. So I often think about downtime, like what one thing could be used for in other ways. Now, my frustration with this is buildings. Yeah, we tend to build buildings for one specific purpose. It's a sports hall. Tends to be just for sport, but we know if we diversify, we can use it for things like exhibitions and
Mm.
conferences and presentations and concerts and other things, which is a good way to look at how to use facilities. Take things like sorry to use this example, but take things like a school, right? If you think about it actually and practically, a school building is closed and empty most of the time. It is. It's closed and empty most of the time. Only 8 hours a day on certain days are there activities happening in a school building. So even on a day when there's an activity happening in the school building, its maximum use is about 33% of the time. The maximum use on a full day is 33% of the time. And that's not including days where it's empty. Every weekend, every holiday day, it's empty. It's not used at all. Now, this is a really, really bad use of effective space. To have a place empty, to have a place maximally, the maximum amount of use that you can have from that on a good day is 33%. The norm is almost zero. If you balance up school days and the time versus holiday days, school days maximum 33%, holiday day, weekend day, day of no activity, zero, almost 0%, right? So I mean, we're down to about, so when a school building is built, if you look at it overall, it's used less than 10% of the time on average. Less than 10% of the time it's used. Now, you can argue about the practicality of that. You say you're not going to use it at night, and okay, I mean, it's just pretty practical. It's not going to get used at night. But and I realized this the first time when I lived in London, and that was my first experience because I'm a countryside person, right? I grew up in the countryside. I like trees and forests and water and parks, and like cities were like, I only ever saw cities in films. Yeah, didn't know what they were like. But yeah, going to the city and seeing like 24-hour shops, like the shop is open 24 hours a day, like, the people who want to grind and work hard, and make money, all these Greek and Turkish and Indian and East European people who came to Britain and London, and they opened a shop, and they're like, we want to make money. We need to make money. And they did. They kept their shop open 24 hours a day, right? And they completely maximized and utilized the space in order to keep their business going and generate income, and hopefully for them make a profit from all the hard work. And it sort of made me think about how we use the spaces that we have, and how we don't use them as well, right? Cars are very practical, very sensible, and yet parked most of the time. For most people, most cars are inactive most of the time. It's not a bad thing. You can only use one thing at a time, and fair enough. But it's interesting to realize the effective use of things. Something that's used, and compare that to something like a mobile phone, right? The mobile phone is pretty much effectively used at all times, and it's practical in that sense. But there's a lot of spaces and places, especially for, and it costs, right? It's expensive to have a space in a place. You gotta pay taxes on your property. You gotta pay energy bills on your property. You gotta pay maintenance on your property. You gotta keep your property clean and stuff, especially if you're a business as well. And those elements are all extremely expensive and totally impractical over the last year of companies having workspaces, but telling everybody, not everybody, telling a lot of people that, okay, you should work from home. It's not really very economically viable. But I think that it's always practical to think about our effective use of spaces. Parks, for example. If you look at most parks, a lot of them are empty a lot of the time. Think about a football stadium. What is it like? Full, like maybe once a week. That whole area, that whole space, like once a week it's used, and then maybe for training. But it's like, oh no, you can't use the actual football pitch for training because that grass has to be perfect for the game, and if you train on it, you'll destroy the grass, so you have to train somewhere else. Yeah, and if you are renting out space, there are people who are interested in downtime, because not everybody lives by the same clock, right? Not, some people at 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe 75% of people are sleeping, but there's around 25% of people who are up and about and doing things. They either can't sleep because there's something on their mind, or they're working, or for them it's better just to be awake at that time for whatever's happening in their life, maybe. Or maybe they've got kids, right, and they're looking after the kids, and kids are awake, or something like that. Or it's the rhythms and times of life, which is why if you've got a facility like a sports hall, there is a market for renting it out at 10 o'clock in the evening, or 11 o'clock, or 12 o'clock. It also depends which culture you're from. I mean, that's a little bit of an alien and strange idea for people in Britain, who are, we wake up at 7, we go to work at 8, we come home at 4, 5, 6, we go to sleep at 10. And you can, like a stopwatch, right? You can have a stopwatch on these people. Click, click, and they would, you can watch the lights go out. Oh, 10 o'clock. The lights go out and everybody goes to bed, which has always puzzled me, because I find that a little bit scary, actually. The fact that an entire nation of people, and maybe it's the nature of the nation and the culture and the society, seem to be all doing things in exactly the same way at exactly the same time. Like well-trained zoo animals, or something like that. I find it, because the idea, if I said to somebody in this part of the world, hey, there's a market for keeping your sports hall open later at night and renting it out at a slightly cheaper price to people who don't want to spend so much money but want to do something at that time, people here would be like, he's crazy. He's crazy. He's completely crazy. Don't talk to him. He's crazy. He's got a different idea. Well, I'm serious. People would be like that. They don't have any diversification or lateral thinking. Like most, like the classic thinking is straight line. We see that in a lot of business. Yeah, people follow the rules, and you'll go exactly in this direction, and you'll be okay. But in order to progress, sometimes you've got to turn corners and think laterally rather than straight, especially in order to solve problems. Because if a problem comes, it comes because you met what was right in front of you all the time, probably. And in order to solve the problem, you've got to think around it, which is what people do, which is what people are great at that. Government says you can't serve drinks inside, so people serve them outside. Right? And and then we end up with ridiculous situations like restaurants that have people who want to eat there but can't for whatever ridiculous reason that exists within that society. But it's all a bit bizarre. So how we use our space. That was a little bit of a rant about how we use our space and the places around about us, and how important that is, and how you don't need a table tennis table, because you can get a little net and you can put it on your kitchen table or your coffee table, and you can play with your kitchen table or your coffee table as the table for table tennis, which is what I did as a kid. Right, we didn't have space, so we had a little net and we put it on like a little table, had this little fold up parts at the side to make it a little bit bigger, and we played on that table. Or here's a great one for younger kids. Maybe you've done this already. You get the little table tennis table net, cost you 5-10 euros, whatever. And if you've got a younger kid, playing table tennis is a little bit difficult because the ball is small and it travels quickly and coordination can be difficult. So you get the little bats that you play with, and you don't use a table tennis ball, you use a balloon. Right? And that will give the child all of the same activity, and they'll develop all of the coordination that would be required, but using a balloon, which is obviously bigger and it travels more slowly, so it gives the child more time to react as well. And table tennis is also great because the bat is actually an extension of the human hand. That's what it is. Because originally, if you go back in history, people didn't have bats. Didn't have them. They used their hand. They just used their hand because they didn't have other things to use. So yeah, how we use our space and place matters. And children are great with that because they see the infinite possibilities. It's not just a chair, it's a castle. It's not just a wall, it's a canvas. It's not what else? It's not just a book, it's a building material. So adults tend to forget that, and as a result, they're not able to solve a lot of problems. Anyway, let's talk work.